Hello. I decided to do another teaching idea on an applet that I found again on the NCTM Illuminations website. Now, this one is appropriate for grades pre-K through 2. The caution with pre-K and kindergarten students is that it's sometimes difficult to get them focused on the correct activity on electronics. But if you have a group of students who could be challenged in pre-K, this might be something you would consider. I could definitely see using this as a math center in kindergarten and first grade, and there are some challenging skills that I could see being used for second and maybe even third grade students. So the activity is creating, describing, and analyzing patterns. So down here we have a board, okay? And what we're going to be doing with this grid, this board, is creating patterns. So one thing you can do, now this would be for younger students, you can just start with a very simple grid. And here you have pattern tiles, okay? I would maybe for younger students, direct this towards just using colors, but it can be fun if you're using some of these shapes. So I will go ahead and show you how to fill these 4 tiles with a pattern. I am using a simple AB pattern. Just kidding. There we go. Okay. And then you come over here and you push the play, and it pops them up on your screen, on your tile board. Now, some things can happen with this. You could have a discussion asking your students, what do you notice? Well, on one side, my triangles are pointing up, and on another side, my triangles are pointing down. You could also direct this towards giving them specific things to use. You could say, I want you to create an AB pattern, or I want you to create an ABB pattern, and start giving these patterns titles. All right, so then as our students get older, I'm going to go ahead and clear my board, and clear my tiles, and I think I'm going to turn the volume down. Okay, now as we make this a little more challenging for older students, now you can see I have a grid that is 6 by 6, 6 down, 6 across. So this starts to become more challenging. You can use more complex patterns instead of the simple AB, ABB, ABC types of patterns. You can start drawing in more components. You could start having requirements for students, such as create a pattern whose 18th square is green. Now that could be challenging because as you see down here, we do not have 18 tiles to lay out. So if I want to have a pattern whose 18th tile is green, now I'm going to start reasoning. Well, maybe my 6th pattern, the 6th place in my pattern should be green, and every 6th piece will be green. Or you could do every 3rd piece will be green, however the students decide to set this up. Another challenge you could give the students is make a pattern where you have a diagonal red line. So red in this one, in this one, in this one, this one, this one, and this one. That would probably require the students to explore different patterns, try and figure out how often they need a red one. You could also ask your students to make different patterns with different sizes. So what's going to happen if we start the pattern on a size like this, keep the pattern, and move to a grid whose squares are smaller? We're going to have a bigger pattern, essentially. What will happen to those patterns? Okay. Now with this, we also have a challenge, which I find very interesting. I think students who like to be challenged in math would enjoy this, and maybe even students who need to be pushed a little bit could enjoy something like this. Now here's a simple example, okay? And you could tell your students this is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how we count. We count across, go down across, just like we read. So if I were to make a pattern for this, I would maybe do purple, green, red, green. Come over here and push play. Watch it fill. And as you can see, I got that one right. I will admit that I've missed a few. Now, you can click this new challenge and it sets up the board for a different challenge. And you can also increase the intensity. I think this would be extremely difficult to figure out to get to the point where you know this one's going to be red. You really have to have an understanding of the terms and patterns, which is ultimately what we are getting our elementary students to be thinking about when it comes to patterns. Now again, on this illuminations, we have an explanation at the top. We have the instructions for you to explain to your students or have your students read on their own. We have the questions. I gave examples of those. With this activity, there aren't related resources, though I'm sure you can find many supplemental resources to go with a lesson like this, okay? And that is creating, describing, and analyzing patterns. Students are doing all of those. They are creating patterns. They are describing them through the discussions. And they are analyzing patterns, trying to figure out how can I make a diagonal go across, or how can I make straight lines of a color. So that is the patterns applet that I explored. Enjoy!